Hola amigos y amigas, nuevamente.
Hello friends, here with you again, accompanying this process of CPT delegations. We are going to show part of that history of resistance that we as organizations and communities have accompanied, and of course the Christian peacemaker teams in Barrancabermeja.
El equipo cristiano Acción por la Paz en Barrancabermeja.
Now we are going to take a taxi to go to the different places. This cost us more or less $2. Join us.
Estamos en el monumento.
We are here at the monument in honor of the victims of May 16. Civilians who at the time were forcefully disappeared in a number of 25 and murdered in a number of 7. Young people, adults, all civilians from this sector of the city of the 7th District who were attacked by a paramilitary group of the self-defense groups of Santander and Southern Cesar for the mere fact of living in a popular sector.
De habitar en un sector popular, una acción que
An action that was looking to generate terror, hopelessness, fear in a society. Today, these communities, their relatives, are articulated and organized around the May 16 Collective. Every year, they cry out for the truth, for justice, for comprehensive reparation, keeping the historical memory alive. They are every day more alive in the memories of a society that increasingly wants to build itself from the perspective of a democracy of inclusion and making sure that these events do not happen again. That is why, as part of this just claim of this group is, they always speak of non-repetition. The non-repetition of those terrible actions of the May 16 massacre of 1998. Young people, adult men, and one woman who paid with their lives for the contempt that the actors of the war have for the civilians who inhabit sectors where we raise our voices to ask for justice, to ask for well-being, to ask that the government attend to the demands of the population. This is what happened to these people, and this plaque has been erected in memory of each and every one of them.
Se ha elegido en memoria de todos y cada uno de ellos.
Now we're heading to the Puente Elevado, the elevated bridge, an emblematic place in the city, one that you'll surely want to know about. Join us.
Para entender la historia de la ciudad, sus luchas.
To understand the history of the city, its struggles, and all that its integration and development means, we must stop at this place. The bridge that connects the old city, the center where districts 1 and 2 are, and the northeastern sector. Everything that happened during the 80s, the 90s, and the new century. The northeastern sector, districts 5, 6, and part of district 7, the southeastern sector.
Comuna 5, 6 y parte de la Comuna 7, el sector suroriental. Este es un lugar que inicialmente...
This is a place that initially separated the two cities. It separated them in relation to the materialization of confrontations, the execution of hostilities by each and every one of the actors in the conflict. The state, its forces that maintain order, were in the old sector, here in districts 1 and 2, and the emerging groups, the urban guerrillas, were right there in districts 5, 6, and 7. They always avoided going to the other side, because every time they crossed this bridge that links the city, it meant a confrontation. It meant death. It meant wounded. It meant destruction. That is why that period was so hard.
Confrontación significaba muertos, significaba heridos, significaba destrucción. Por eso fue tan duro ese periodo de las
Almost 20 years of direct confrontation, where this sector of the bridge played a transcendent role for one side or the other. Fortunately, with all the civil processes that we have experienced, the bridge returns to its original state of uniting and connecting the city.
De unir y de pegar la ciudad.
Crossing the bridge, we will go to another place, one full of stories of resistance and social struggle. This time, we go to the Camilo Torres Park. Without further ado, let's go.
Nos encontramos aquí en el monumento al padre Camilo Torres Restrepo.
We are here at the monument to Father Camilo Torres Restrepo. Why a monument to Camilo Torres Restrepo and in a city like Barranca? First, it must be said that Father Camilo, when he was at the height of his political work in Colombia, on several occasions he visited the oil port, Barrancabermeja, as a leader, accompanying the workers, accompanying the communities, accompanying the radical thinking of Barrancabermeja. Then, the historical political event occurred that the priest went to the insurgency and was there in the ELN, and everything that happened with the priest happened, and he ended up dead or assassinated in a combat in the community of Patio Cemento.
Barrancabermeja, los obreros petroleros y la población.
The workers of Barrancabermeja, the oil workers, and the population that built this sector of Galán Gómez neighborhood always left a space for a small square for the workers. And then, in homage to that historical legacy of Camilo, they dedicated this small square, all this space, to pay homage to the V of victory, to the unitary, civilistic, and altruistic thinking of Father Camilo Torres Restrepo. Not the guerrilla warrior, but the fighter, the dreamer, the transformer of society. To the sociologist who drew the line and said where it was that the community had to go to win its claim.
Para ganar su reivindicación. Por eso los obreros.
That is why the workers and the people of Barrancabermeja paid tribute in the 80s to Father Camilo with this small square that remains a stage for meetings, a stage for the great social and popular demonstrations of the city. There isn't an act to claim a right in its entirety that does not include the Camilo Torres Restrepo Square, because there in that scenario is the feeling that Father Camilo bequeathed to us. That is why today it is important to be in the square on this tour.
Estar en la plazoleta en este recorrido.
Now let's go to the heart of the city, the Magdalena River, a place so deep and imposing that if the river spoke, there would be so much to tell.
Venir al río es venir a la vida.
Coming to the river is coming to life. Everything starts here. This is Barranca. Barranca rises from the river that shapes any possibility of life. According to carbon-14 tests, this river on the left and right banks has housed communities for 16,000 years. But more recently, 600 years ago, with the arrival of Europeans, a society was found on these banks, an indigenous society that already staked claim here on this earth, in this vermilion land.
Reivindicaciones aquí en esta tierra bermeja. Por eso,
that is why the river for us is that inexhaustible source of life. Unfortunately, in the 80s, 90s, and 2000s, we turned our backs on the river. We did so due to violence. All the violence that was generated in the south of the middle Magdalena region was transferred to the river. They threw corpses in it. They threw all that results in violence in it and onto this area. It was the communities, the authorities that collected the corpses that came from the south of the middle Magdalena. Therefore, the Barranqueña society temporarily turned its back on the river. Hence the deterioration, hence the abandonment, That is why this lack of giving it the place that the river requires in a society in full development, because the river is life. The river is economy. The river is connectivity. There isn't a more direct way to go to the south or north of the middle Magdalena, but by this artery that connects us even to the Caribbean in Barranquilla, in Puerto de Ceniza. The river is all this. It is articulation, it is connectivity, it is life, it is productivity, it is the possibility of returning. That is why we salute all these processes that have been taking place to recover these historical sectors, to recover the river, to make a great boardwalk, including, again, the development of the beautiful daughter of the sun to the river. That is why the river for us, I repeat, is life, development, and the possibility of inclusion.
Es desarrollo, es posibilidad de inclusión.
We have arrived at the last place. It's about the Colombian oil company Ecopetrol, which Francisco will tell us a little more about.
Hacer este recorrido y grabar.
Taking this tour and filming at the entrance of the Colombian oil company Ecopetrol is going back in history. It is to go to the beginning of our city. Already in the year 1918, a century ago, in the township of El Centro, was the rupture of the Cretaceous and the birth of the black gold industry that brought to Barrancabermeja the possibility of development. Let us remember that it is oil that birthed the municipality 4 years later in 1922 by means of a departmental assembly ordinance. Ecopetrol that was born much later, almost in the decade of 51, but that led to all the development that came from 1918 is so important for us. We say that Ecopetrol and the USO, the United Workers Union, are twins. They were born from the same trunk. But Ecopetrol, the USO, and Barranca are Siamese. They are glued by that great trunk of the possibility of the Barranca culture of development, of coming together. Here, not only wealth is produced, not only employment, not only possibilities for dignifying work and life for some men and women who are employed in the oil industry. Here, many centuries of possibilities of building society are woven by our hands in Barrancabermeja. Since the encounter with a natural product, a natural wealth such as black gold, that throughout its industrialization process has allowed us to have gone from a village, from a very small town a century ago, to a city in full development like the one we have, thanks to all the oil processes. But it has also brought us many difficulties, many struggles, and even serious violations of human rights in the hardest moments that we have had to live in the region. Ecopetrol has been linked to all this. It has been linked to development, it has been linked to growth, but it has also been linked to sponsoring a series of dire circumstances for the society of Barranca. There are legal processes where Ecopetrol security people are linked to the projects of death.
Ecopetrol vinculados con el proyecto de la muerte. Entonces,
so coming to this site is to find all that with the good, with the not so good, with the bad, and with the terrible that has been around a process that has propelled us, that has given us the possibility to grow. But that has also brought us tears, thick and dark tears, in the incomprehensible night of violence that has been a continuous dream in this region. That is why for us, Ecopetrol, through the representation of Raúl Eduardo Maecha, who founded the USO, and Galán Gómez, who made the first 5-year plan of Ecopetrol, are important symbols of where we are going as a society.
This is where the tour of the city ends, a city that for 20 years has welcomed us and today has become our home.